So what are intervals? Intervals are commonly defined as the spaces between notes. Understand that the concept of the interval is that they can be defined as the key essential elements that cause specific patterns to exist. This is a deeper definition that requires patience. Take the chromatic scale, for instance. If we employ the use of these intervals between certain notes with the idea that the intervals serve as notes that aren't being played at all, the remaining notes make a pattern of specific notes to be played. These notes are common intervals, and we will explore them further. In regards to that, the desired notes that you hear, as opposed to the ones that you don't want to play, those are your chosen notes, like the C major scale or the A natural minor scale, and so on and so forth. There are different types of intervals that are described in music theory. These are called majors and perfects. Major intervals cover the second, third, sixth, and seventh positions, whereas perfects cover the first, the fourth, the fifth, and eighth positions. The eighth position is the equivalent to the first because it's the same note. However, it's just in a higher octave of the first note. Now, as we stated earlier, intervals are defined on the most part as spaces in between notes. If we look at the chromatic scale, we will see it from the context of one note to the next. Going further in this approach, we see that certain notes can be selected from the patterns to construct a certain arrangement of tones. These patterns, of course, are scales, and they are needed to create melodies and chord structures. Hence, they are the foundation of the composition. This is so because from the specific patterns of notes, intervals, or scales, we select specific notes to form specific chords or harmonies. In the context of chords, we can see a good example of intervals and their purpose. We can see this in chord conversion from the major chords to minor chords. When chord conversions take place, the chord must change in a specific way. This is why intervals are the key. Converting a C major to a C minor requires the composer to change the third interval or note in the C major chord and lower the note by a half step down in pitch. Spaces are involved in such a process. So as the result, a C E G is changed to a C E flat G or C minor. Hence C major conversion to C minor. In the case of this, we are changing the third interval. This goes further in the realm of chord construction, where notes of higher degrees are added to create more interesting sounds. The other function for this can be seen as scientific because it involves altering mood and mental stimulation. In the field of music neurology, music is used in mental therapy for depression and disorders regarding mood. This is possible because certain chords are arranged to enhance brightness to the senses, stimulating brain function in such a way as to exhibit brightness or a heightened overall awareness. Knowledge of chord construction, more specifically how intervals work, is the key in this regard. Thus, major chord arrangements are usually seen in forming bright compositions to elevate moods, whereas minor chord arrangements can alter moods that appear to be hyper, anxious, etc., to calm and even cause people to be more focused. Back to the use of intervals with the scale construction. The specific uses of scales can be used to enhance expression, the intended expression of the work. Remember the playing of the A minor and A harmonic minor as opposed to the sound of the C major scale. Also consider how the A pentatonic was also included in there. In order for this to happen, a fundamental understanding of the function of intervals must be known. Indeed, intervals are spaces in between the notes, but a very deep wealth of functions come forth from this concept. This concept can be seen even when we're tuning our instruments. We see the arrangements of the notes of each string, and upon hearing one that is not in tune, we can correct it. We do this because we are operating on interval function internally. Hence, externally, when looking at the tuning devices, we see measurement gauges that tell us when the string is off, close or even accurately in tune. The interval functioning is being used here because we're actually seeing the measurements of the spaces between each note to ensure the accurate points of the appropriate note for each string. Spaces between the notes are used for identification of each, and from this, a wealth of creative processing can occur. Take note at looking at these following charts, you'll see the many different types of ways that intervals are used, stemming from being able to identify the notes of the scale, the numbers of those notes in the scale from 1 to 8, and the tones C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C will guide us into using intervals to construct chords, such as your perfects on the right and the majors on the left. The center circle showing how to construct different types of chords from the perfects and majors. We can add different elements or different higher intervals to the chord structures themselves, where we're augmenting them, where we see on the right side of the circle going upward, augmenting being adding to, and taking away, hence the minor sign for the minor chords, or diminishing the notes, where we flatten. On the other charts, we see mode intervals, which are in the center of the chart. On the bottom, we see how the mode intervals work, how the difference in the mode intervals are from each interval. When you go from 1, you start on C. When you go to 2, you start on D. You never lose the amounts of intervals between the D of the lower octave to the D of the higher octave, or the C from the lower octave to the C of the higher octave. E, F, G, A, B, and C. There's going to always be 8, but we're just starting on different intervals, fulfilling each of those 8 spaces. We will further explore the charts and the chord conversion charts, as well as the way we look at the construction of different scales, and also improvising techniques stemming from the concept of intervals. Please review these charts, and we will go further into an explanation of these charts on Wednesday. Thank you very much. God bless.